you. Two people have given me comments and messages before now. One was Angel Metzger is at our state's Youth Standards Night. And so she said, please brag on Diane for all of the help she has given me in finding names for temple work. I think she is referring to her husband's side of the family. Her mother-in-law has just been sharing with her lately some of the pictures and stories and information that she has. And it just happened to mesh with things that specialties that Diane had. And so that's been great for Angel. Then Diane said she is at the State Family History Center tonight, helping the Spanish-speaking sisters that are there. Not sisters, but members, that they needed extra help. So she went there, and so she's not even here for our lesson tonight. But I'm real pleased that they are going great guns. Every Sunday night, the Tapias from the Freedom Stakes Spanish-speaking ward have a big turnout of people coming for help, and they help them. They just really do a lot of family history work in their ward. So tonight, I think we might as well get right in it. Tonight we're talking about indexing. One of the reasons that I have been particularly thinking about indexing lately is federal law states that 72 years after a census was taken, it can be released to the public, which would mean that our coming April 1st, the 1950 census can be released to the public. Now, a census that is not indexed is not as helpful as one that has been indexed. So I'm sure that the church is going to be working as fast as they can to get the census broken up into batches that can be sent out to indexers to index. But we all want to be up to speed so that the day it's released, we can start indexing. I mentioned before we started that I really haven't done too much indexing since the 1940 census was released. I've done, seems like I go in spurts and do a little bit and then long spurts without doing some. But I'm going to want to really be helping with the 1950 census. And I hope that all of you and people in our wards are going to want to be helping with the 1850 census. So we kind of need to brush up or else get in gear or else learn so that 6 months from now, when that census is released, that we're ready to go to town on it.
Okay.
So I already forgot your name, sister. Oh, you're another Helen, aren't you? Sister Helen Cox, and also Helen.
Yeah, it's Drew, Helen and Drew.
DRU.
DRU. Okay. So you did indexing before when you were a missionary at the
BYU.
At BYU Family History Library.
Right. It's been about 4 years, so I just need to get on the ball again.
Well, 4 years is not a really long time. That's good. So you did indexing during then.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm going to try to do right now is get a feel for who's done indexing lately. Who's in the process? Elise, is that your name? Elise? So tell me a little bit about your indexing experience.
I've been indexing for several years now, and I try to do it on a regular basis.
Great. My indexing went forward best when every morning after breakfast, I would turn on my computer and fix a cup of hot chocolate and index for 20 minutes. And it was amazing how much I could do when I did it regularly like that. Maybe if I'd get up now regularly and eat breakfast regularly, maybe it'd be easier to index regularly. Michelle, how much indexing have you done? What's your experience?
So I did when our state had a goal to do a certain number of names, I was much better at it. I have done indexing this year, but only once or twice. My daughter, however, does try to do indexing on Sundays, at least she tries to do indexing every Sunday, depending on how she feels. But
That's a wonderful
Yeah.
Sabbath day activity.
I just heard her yell from the other room, "I'm doing it right now."
Good for her. My daughter tells me that her 7th grade son is the best decipherer of the cursive writing and indexing of anybody in their family. And why would a 7-year-old athletic boy have that specific talent? I don't know, but I think that that's great. I once heard somebody say that they thought that if parents thought their kids were doing too much screen time, that they could say your amount of screen time that you're allowed to do equals the amount of indexing that you do. So if you do an hour of indexing, then you can have an hour of game playing. I think we all use our screens so much nowadays. I think that could be difficult for all of us. Trevor, you've done indexing?
I try to do it a little bit once a week. Consistency is better than trying to do a lot on one day, I figure. So
Well, good. When do you leave on your mission?
that is the 19th of October.
So you really are down to less than a month before your indexing time goes on hold for a while.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm trying to get a lot in.
Good for you. Will you be teaching in English?
I will not. I will be teaching Spanish.
In what?
In Spanish.
In Spanish. You could do Spanish indexing. Did you know that?
I did, and I was my Spanish practice has accelerated over the last month or so, so I might be able to do it now, but I was intimidated before. So
okay. John, you do so much research. Do you have time for indexing?
No, I'm a phony on indexing because I'm taking advantage of the indexing that hundreds of other people have done. But I'm just spending all of my time on doing the original research and getting names into the temple, and so
That's the rest of the picture. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm the other side of the indexing story, in that I use them.
Is that your music, John?
Yeah.
Okay. Chestnuts, what indexing do you do? Have you done any? We still have it. You're still muted. There you go.
Okay. I actually haven't indexed for probably, I don't know, maybe 8 years. So when you said lately, I thought that's a long time.
So tonight's a refresher for you for sure. Okay.
Yeah. And I don't think Rick has ever done it.
Okay. Well, good.
Okay.
Alice, did you ever do much indexing?
I've done a smidgen.
Okay. One time I visited Alice in Wisconsin, and she invited all of her friends over and had me teach a class. That she tends to do that. Wherever she is and I visit her, she tends to arrange for me to teach a class.
That's true.
I've taught in the little public library of Halfway, Oregon, and in friends' homes in Washington and Wisconsin and all over. Nina, have you done indexing? Nina's.
Okay, I got it. I did some a few years ago. Probably about the same time Michelle did. And the last several weeks, while I've been in the library doing my shift,
Uh-huh,
I've done indexing because
good,
Pam mows there and she knows everything. So
good.
I can ask her questions and stuff. So I've been working on it.
Pam Mo's husband did huge amounts of indexing.
Yeah, yeah.
So she's a good helper, I'm sure.
Yep, she is.
This is
Elsie.
our first year for Nancy and I to be in an index, to be in a census.
Yes. So what Alice is pointing out is that Alice and I are old. We were alive in 1950. So we will be in the 1950 census. And I'm wondering how we're going to be represented there. Should be our mom and dad and 3 girls. So, but Alice will just be a baby. She'll only be a year old. Less than a year old. But we don't know yet. I don't know what questions they asked in 1950. So that will be interesting to find out. Elsie, is this Elsie McClellan? I see your name, but I don't see a picture, Elsie. If you unmute or if you answer, then we'll want you to tell us about the indexing that you've done. So I'm going to start out a little bit by telling you what indexing is. And I'm going to begin with kind of an introduction to how it was when I started family history. The first year that I ever did any family history was the first year I was married. And so I was looking for my ancestor, Hugh Michael, and I could pretty well narrow down that he lived in Adair County, Missouri. And so I wanted to see what it looked like in the census. So I checked to see if there were any indexed census records in books at the BYU library, and there were not. So I ordered a film, and the librarian helped me figure out what film to order. And I don't remember how much it cost, a couple of dollars. And I filled out the form and paid my money, and she sent it in. And a month later, the film came in, and she taught me how to use the microfilm machine, how to thread the film around through the machine, and how to crank the crank and read the pages. And I began on page 1 of Adair County 1850 census and turned the pages until I found Hugh Michael. And then I found other Michaels, and it was so exciting for me. And so I got a blank form. There were no, there's not a way to hook up a printer to the microfilm machine in those days. And so I got a blank form, and I wrote on the top, Adair County, Missouri, 1850, page number, whatever it was. And then I wrote down on the various lines what I had learned about Hugh Michael in that census. And then I kind of realized I needed the 1860 census and the 1870 and the 1880. And then I realized I needed the census that was next door to Adair County. And then by the time it was over, I had read lots of censuses, but each one required, first of all, figuring out what census I needed, figuring out what film that was, filling out the form, paying the money, waiting for it to come in, having to go to the library on days that I could go to the library and read for an hour on the old microfilm, which was just about to give you a headache if you worked very long. And I was so thrilled to be able to find out what I wanted to know about Hugh Michael and his children on that census record. Nowadays, if you wanted to look up Hugh Michael in the 1850 census, you would just look up, you would do the search form on Family Search, or you could even do the search form on Ancestry, and you'd fill out the template, and in about a minute, you would get back 2 results. You would find out that Hugh Michael lived in Adair County, Missouri in 1850, and that he also lived in Schuyler County, Missouri in 1850. And the information was pretty much the same. And I was kind of stumped about that until later a contact I made in Missouri said, he lived on the border. They didn't know which county he was in, so both counties went to visit him when they were taking the census. That was a whole lot more work than it is today to check on a census. And the reason is that not only has the census been indexed, but it has been computerized and then made searchable. And so now the computer does the searching for us and saves us weeks of effort. And we don't even have a clue how much effort is being saved and how much more quickly we're being able to find people and things because of indexing. So one day, a few years ago, we met a distant relative at the Family History Library in Salt Lake for an afternoon. We had met over the internet earlier, and she was coming to Salt Lake to do research. So we met for the afternoon, and she said, well, I just think what your church ought to do is put everything that you've got in his library on the internet. And I said, Susan, you have no clue what you're talking about. That is absolutely impossible. We have millions of rolls and pages of microfilm. It just absolutely, positively could not be done. Don't even entertain such an idea. And a few months later, Gordon B. Hinckley announced the church intended to digitize all of the records that the church had microfilmed in the last more than 100 years and make them searchable on the internet. And at first it happened real slowly. I remember when the first 1 million entries had been done. And now it's 1 million entries happen just in a few days' time. I don't have the exact figures for today, but it is just absolutely positively remarkable. So that's what indexing is taking records of churches, governments, communities, other things, and making them first of all digital so that they can be on the internet, and then second, going through and reading them and typing up what you read and making an index of what's available. Nowadays, computers are even getting sophisticated enough that they're able to do some computer indexing on certain types of records. Now I'm going to start sharing my screen. When we first started doing indexing, you had to install on your computer a separate program called indexing. Nowadays, they have switched it so that it is done all through the web. So now we go to Family Search. There's two ways to get to indexing. There's the hard way, where you go first to the church's website, and there's the easy way where you start at Family Search. So when you go to Family Search, you just click in on indexing, and then you're given a bunch of possibilities. And what you're going to be using to do the actual indexing is web indexing. But when you first are getting ready to start again, you probably ought to go to this overview. The overview has in it several sections. The one section that is a very good beginning is try it out. And if you go to this section and try it out, there will be a one-page indexing project for you to do. It will probably be a United States draft sign up page. And this will walk you through and teach you the basics of how to do it. You could also go to the Get Help and have questions answered, but probably the first thing you're going to want to do after you've done that guided tour is go to web indexing. And you will figure out, I think, that there's two ways to get started in indexing. One is the very slow way, where somebody explains all of the ins and outs, all of them, and so you've got a good basic, strong beginning knowledge base. And the other is for somebody to show you the very basic essentials, like you will have gotten in that guided tour, that help you get started with the hope that then you'll follow through and learn more as you go. It's kind of hard to find a middle ground so that you know the middle amount as you get started. But maybe tonight I'll kind of touch more on that middle ground. So this is the initial page on web indexing. The first thing you're going to need to do is find a batch. And so that means that we have to understand some definitions. A group of records would be called a project. So the project might be draft registration records for the state of Utah. The project might be Missouri naturalization records from such and such year to such and such year. It might be marriages in Wisconsin from 1900 to 1925. But it will be a group of records. And so there are lots of projects that are available. So you're going to want to find a project that looks interesting to you. So you'll click on Find Batches. Once you click to Find Batches, at this beginning, all of your batches will be indexing. So if you're given the option here of you'll just choose indexing. That's the beginning. Then you can choose your difficulty level. I kind of like beginning and intermediate. Probably to begin with, you're going to do beginning. And here are a list of all of the English speaking batches that are available today. Now, if I turn off intermediate, I only have one possible batch, but a lot of the intermediate ones are still very easy. You have to choose whether you want a project that is almost finished or one that's just getting started. So if you were to choose tax assessment records for Canada, now why would tax assessment records be available? Because they tell you whether or not somebody lived there. So that might be a good one to start on if you like to start at the beginning of a project. Now, on mine, it lists all of these indexed and reviewed. After you have done a certain number of records, then you have the option of whether you want to look and see if you think somebody else indexed it correctly, or if you want to just index it yourself. In the beginning of indexing, there were two people that indexed each batch. You know what? I got ahead of myself. I left out the rest of the definitions. But so they had one person index it, and they called that indexer A. They had another person index it. They called it indexer B. Then they had the computer look the two of them over and see if there was any place where they were different. And any place they were different then was tagged, and a third person went through and compared them and resolved the differences. Nowadays, one person does the indexing and the second person goes through and makes sure that they agree with what the first person did and corrects the places where they don't. So that because I have indexed a certain quantity, I think it's 1,000 names, then I'm also given the option to do reviews. At first, you will just be given the option to do indexing. And it is also smart for any reviewer to not review a batch of project that they have not already indexed, so that they know more about them. Okay, so I'm sorry for my sidetrack from my definitions. So a project is the big picture. Then below the project comes batches. And so each batch is what is guessed you can do in under 20 minutes. And sometimes they're good at that guess and sometimes they're not. Then below the batch or in each batch are images there might be one image, there might be 20 images, but each image is the same as one screenshot, one picture that was taken. And so that image might have lots of pages on it. It might just have one page on it. Well, the batch might have lots of pages or just one, and the page might have one image or many. And on each image, there might be one entry or a bunch. So for example, on a draft card, there's just going to be one. It's just when one person went and registered for the draft. On a ship record, when a ship lands in the United States, it might have 100 names on the page. So they're going to be different, but each event that happens is going to be called an entry. Or so like if John arrives in New York, he's one entry, and when Mary arrives, she's the second entry, and each person is separate and they're a separate entry. So as we talk tonight, you're going to want to kind of keep those different things in mind, and if you have questions about them, interrupt me and ask them. So here is what you're going to do to choose a batch. So let's say that I'm going to choose Wisconsin marriage records. And as I wait, it's going to give me some information here. The information that it's giving me on these marriages for Wisconsin is that sometimes living people are in these marriage records, and they are not going to release any marriage records that have possibly still living people. So I have to promise not to go around telling anybody about anybody that I found out that was married in Wisconsin and listed in the batch that I indexed. And so then this is what comes up on the screen next. And so this is what they would call a batch to be indexed. And there are several things that are here on this screen. And if I were to talk to you about every single icon and all of the information about all of them, you might think indexing was too hard. So we don't want to do that. I'm going to take just a minute and look at your faces again because they had disappeared from my screen. The first thing you're going to decide is this a document that I can read? And if it is, you type on this square, yes, this is an image that should be indexed. And then it's going to ask you, well, what about the second page? Down here are the 2 pages that are in this batch. And I'm going to say, yes, that's got good information on it. It should be indexed. And then it is going to give me an entry. And so all of this right here is one marriage entry. And here are the information. Here's the information that I need to take off of this form and put in this form in order for it to be indexed. So the first thing it's going to want to know is, now I have to move your faces again. What page is it? State file number is number 119. I'm going to type in 119. Now, how do I know that that's what I'm doing? There's 2 ways. One is here, I click at this purple question mark. And in every single square, there's going to be that purple question mark.
Nancy,
And if I click on it,
we can only see the certificate of marriage. We can't see the page that you're filling in.
Can you see up here?
It's because of the pictures, Nancy. Put them on top, maybe.
Well, the pictures are on the other side of the page. So I guess you're going to have to go on your own screens afterwards and look at the form. I don't know why they're not there, but the form consists of, or the template consists of squares or boxes that you fill in. And each box is labeled. If the box is labeled with a star, it means that it's a required box and you have to fill it in. If it does not have a star, you don't have to worry about filling it in. If that information is not in the form that you're copying from. So if there's no such thing listed on here, then you have to mark it that it's blank or non-existent. And you do that by hitting the Control key and the capital and the B key at the same time, and it will mark it as blank. So the things that family search specialists have decided are important to know about a marriage record are the things that are going to be marked with an asterisk. Now, sometimes it's pretty easy to know what to do. What is a given name? Well, in this case, it says that Irvin H is the groom's first names. So that's easy to put in. The groom doesn't have a maiden name, so you'd put in a Control B. But there are three ways to get from one place on the form to another. One is to hit the Tab key, one is to hit the Enter key, and the third is to use your mouse. Most people find that it's pretty slow going if you always use your mouse. So you get in the habit of using the Tab key. Now, the computer programmers that did this wanted to make it easy for us, so they automatically capitalized the first word in any line. So or appropriately. So if the given name in this case is Irvin H, you don't even have to hit the capital, the Shift key in order to get I to be a capital. And you don't have to hit the Shift key to get H to be a capital. It just automatically knows to do that. So that makes indexing pretty fast because you can be pretty lazy about capital letters. As you go down through the form, each section, when you click on that section by either your tab or your mouse or your Enter key, there's going to be this little purple question mark in the corner. And when you hit that purple question mark, here are the helps that you need to know for that particular form. Now, can you read this help square? No. Okay. You'll just have to trust me that over here on the right-hand side at the bottom are the instructions that will tell me about that field help. And I can, in fact, do the whole image by just going down and clicking on the little purple question mark, and it will give me the field help to tell me what I need to know to fill in that square. But that's what you do if you were just learning and I just wanted you to do something and you didn't really want to get the firm foundation. To get the firm foundation, and you won't be able to see it, apparently, on this left-hand side at the very bottom of the template that we're filling out, it says Project Instructions. And if I click on Project Instructions, it is going to give me a several paragraph set of instructions that tell me about this particular project. So it's going to tell me about what marriage records in Wisconsin are like, and what parts of the marriage of the license and the certificate have to be indexed, and whether to index things that are written by typewriter or only by hand, or only by typewriter, whatever. And you get lots of instructions there. And one of the best things that you get there is an option to click on another picture, and it will show you a marriage record, and they will have drawn little red lines around each of the parts that you have to index. So if you have to index this license number up here, then it's going to have a little red line around on the sample page around that 119. And it's going to have on it number 1, because that'll be line number 1 that you needed to fill out. And then for the groom's name, it's going to have a little red line around his name so that you can see that that's what you need to fill out for number 2. And so that is one of my favorite ways to get help, is to go click on that sample document with the red squares drawn around it to help me locate the different things that I need. For example, on this marriage license, it calls it a state file month. Well, what is a state file month? So to be able to look at that picture and see what a state file month is helpful. So that is how you fill out the form with only descriptions and not being able to see it. If you find that the image has more than one entry on it, then there's a place down here where you can click and it will give you a second form to fill out. But after you've filled out all the form, the last thing at all that it's going to say to do is, well, after you've done the first page, you do number 2. After you've done number 2, in this one case, because it's just got 2 batches, you're going to click on the square that says submit batch. And you very much might want to read that ahead of time and see what it says. Now, did you get a quality check box showing up in the middle of the page? Okay, so that's what's going to show up. And in this case, because I did not fill in the forms step by step, it tells me that there are 34 things that I didn't pay enough attention to as I went through this. So it says on the very first entry, it says that the given name is a required field. So I could say, oops, I missed putting in Irvin H as the given names. So I could go in and I could add that. And then I would go to the next issue and it would say that the maiden name is required. So I could do my blank. And then it would say 32 issues. You go through each of the things that the computer noticed that you left out. And when you are finished, then it sends the batch in and the batch is finished. And so this way you have somebody beside yourself kind of checking on you to make sure that you're getting the things that you wanted to do. And so that is a very good help to have. Now, here, can you see all of these lines going across? I'm not seeing anybody's face well enough to see any heads nodding yes or no. Helen says yes. Okay. Each of these is going to be a help that is going to help you figure out something that you might have questions about. Sometimes you might want to put in a ruler so that you could, oh, that's quality control, not a ruler. Okay, here is a little icon you could hit if you wanted to mark the square blank, or you could do, like I said, Control B. Maybe you need to add another line and add another entry between number 1 and 2 or whatever. Then that's how you would do it. Each of these has its own little help. And sometimes you're going to need those. But I'm not going to take time tonight to go through all of those except just to point out that they're there. Over here is the make it bigger, make it smaller that we have in most things. Let's go back to our batch. Well, what I want to do is go back to our first screen, and you can see that now that I've chosen a batch, it shows up here. Now it is giving me till September 23rd to finish this. September 23rd is not a whole week. Usually it's a week. That's just 5 days from now. For some reason, they are hoping to have this batch in, and probably all of the others, in 5 days. Now, what if I have time tonight and I get it half done, but I don't get the rest done? What happens? They just take it back from me, remove my guilt for not having time to get it done, and give it to somebody else. So we don't have to feel bad if ever we choose a batch and we just don't get around to it because it's very clear that life happens to all of us. And so that is something that's great to know, that if we don't get it done, that's okay. Down here further is a progress chart. Sometimes it's good for us to set a target. Maybe we want to work an hour on a Sunday. Maybe we want to do 1,000 names on the census each month. Whatever our goal is, we can set it here, and then we can kind of look and see if we are on target with what our goal was. Now, I also find this part interesting. This says that there are 580 indexers in the Provo South State. Now, it doesn't list any projects that we're working on together as a group, but it does tell us that we're this many indexers. And if we click up here, we should get a list of all of them and how our work is going. We can see here that somebody has done a lot of reviewing in August and September. And here's the list of people that are in our stake group. And here is our town hall ward group. And so it says that there are 102 people that have started doing indexing in our ward. Now, really, that's a pretty high percentage. I suspect that some of us haven't done very much lately, but these are people that have started. So if we were to, as a ward, adopt a certain state of the United States when it's time to do the census, then we would be able to see what progress we were making on that. And we would be able to set that as a goal for our state, for our ward. And then ward leaders could check and see who was in fact doing indexing. Stake leaders like me can't. So that's up to each ward to see what they're doing. If our ward had a project we're working on right now, we could make announcements, and we could track again what's being done. We might also wonder what happened in August that our ward did so much less. Maybe Todd Roach was on vacation. But we can follow this through, and that's kind of a fun thing to be able to do. Also, if our groups had adopted a project, then we could put the project in here, and different people that were indexing could do that. And so those of us that are ward consultants might want to consider encouraging our ward family history lead to help set a goal for our ward to do. Either now or probably December would be a rough time to have an indexing goal, but maybe Valentine's to show the love to our ancestors by indexing. Maybe in April to set a goal of a certain number of names from the census or a certain part of the census. Maybe somebody would say, gee, there aren't too many people living in Alaska. Maybe we should adopt Alaska for the 1950 census and see if our ward can really try to get Alaska done quickly, or Rhode Island. So this is how it could be used on a ward basis to encourage people and keep it moving. Something that I want us all to remember is that not everybody likes to do research, but a lot of people want to help with family history because they believe in doing what's been asked, and we've been asked to help with family history and temple work. So a lot of people that don't want to do research are interested in doing indexing. And so as we are working with our ward members, this is certainly an option that we can suggest and encourage for people who say, I'm really not all that interested in doing family history research. Besides, my grandma's done it all. Of course, grandma hasn't done it all, but that might be a way that lots of members would be interested in helping that hadn't helped in other ways. I think that I've covered what I wanted to cover. So I'm going to answer questions. Yes, Trevor.
What is it that says that Grandpa and I are group admins?
Yes, and why are you a group admin in our ward?
Well, I know why in the fact that I'm a consultant, but I'm not sure what it means to be a group admin.
I don't know either, because I can see here that Brother Woodbury and Brother Buxton are Elders Quorum presidents. And the Elders Quorum is supposed to be the lead for family history work in the ward. I do not know Lauren Baxter. I wonder if maybe she has been asked by the Relief Society. Your dad and you are both consultants. So is that why you're listed? If that's why you're listed, why aren't the rest of the consultants listed? I don't know. I can't answer that.
Thank you.
Maybe I have not looked lately on our town hall tools directory to see if the people that I thought were consultants still are. Maybe they're not. Maybe the only consultants in our ward right now are the three of you. Maybe Sister Baxter is. And I don't know why Brother Satterley.
I have looked recently. We do have more than that, but
and I think Brother Schurtz is still our family history lead. So you kind of expect him to be on here.
Yeah.
I don't know, and because I'm in the Family History Center leadership, I do not have access to those reports to try to figure it out.
Okay, thank you.
So my husband just looked, and the Saturdays are ward consultants in our ward, but there's a half a dozen more that are not listed here, including Brother Evangelista, and so I did not know that he was. So that's an answer I don't have. The Deaf Ward recently started a group with a goal. I don't know what their goal was, but the Deaf Ward wanted to work on a goal and work together on a team, as did the youth of the Native American Ward, and neither of those groups are listed here. So I don't have the answer to that either. So any comments? I'm seeing a couple of people talk.
So we think that what's going to be good for us is we just go on after we have this and see it, and also go to this page too, since Drew and I are both consultants.
Okay.
And see, who's listed and who's working on it, because that would
How
be
many in your ward are? Yeah.
To see that.
I think that's a good idea for consultants to do. I kind of think it's, you can't do everything all the time, but I think that every now and again, it's good for the ward or the state to set a goal and to encourage people and to teach people. And it's been a while since our ward or stake has had a goal and an encouragement. And now that school's back in session, might be a good time to start one. Indexing's fun. Start with a typewritten or mostly typewritten set of forms, a project that's mostly typewritten, so that you're not dealing with cursive at first. It takes a bit of practicing sometimes to get comfortable with different styles of cursive. My husband's clue always there is to look on other places on the page to see if you see the same letter shape. And for example, on the one I did this afternoon, the lady's name was Marie, and her little e was written like a capital E. And so I could kind of tell by comparing a typewritten part to a handwritten part that yes, that was in fact an E. And in one place I kind of scratched the screen to see if a bit of dust was a dotted I or if it was an R. Yes, what were you asking?
Sorry, I had a question. So when I was looking at the list of possible projects to choose from, I noticed it no longer told you whether or not the project was going to be more or more. And am I lost here?
Okay, so you were wondering, as you looked at the batches, you were wondering about what?
Yeah, so I'm looking at the list of projects and it doesn't tell me anymore whether they are easy or difficult.
Okay, over here is a beginning level.
Moderate.
Over here is a level list. And so depending on what you check is going to be what it tells you. So if you only click beginning, it's only going to show you beginning projects. If you only click intermediate, it's going to tell you intermediate projects. There I have intermediate and beginning. And then if I only click advanced, then it's going to give me advanced.
Okay.
But I also have the option of going to this sort button, and I can choose if I want to sort them in difficulty status or in whether the name starts with an A or whether the name starts with a Z or which way in the alphabet it goes, which are the newest projects, the oldest projects, the most complete or the least complete. Often I like to complete something. So I could click on most complete, intermediate, let me undo advanced and go to intermediate. And I could see which ones are almost finished. Because I like to complete things, I might very much like to go to Virginia marriage records, 1853 to 1935. And because I like to do reviewing, I might do one batch just to refresh what's in that batch and what the instructions are for that batch of indexing and then switch to reviewing. Generally speaking, I can review 2 or 3 batches in the time it takes me to index one. So I kind of sometimes like to do the reviewed batches just because they're finished faster. So that is a way that you can do it. I think the rule is 5 batches at a time. So if you knew you were going to be working on it a bunch today, then you could download 2 or 3 batches at once. And that way you wouldn't have to stop after each one and re-download. This is really very personalized. Programmers that wrote all of these different ins and outs of these programs really did a very good job of adding ideas here and there that'll make it easier for us to do it.
Nancy, I have a question.
Okay.
Just for verification, Jill and I did a lot of indexing back when it was the 3-person thing.
Uh-huh.
1 person, 2, a second one, and any disputes were by the 3rd, like you mentioned earlier. And so what you're saying now is you have somebody who's initially submitting and then somebody's reviewing, and then you're saying the computer and
no, and that's done. However, also there are some that are done completely by computer instead of by humans. So if it is a form that's filled out in typewritten stuff, then maybe the computer can do it.
So what's determined if there's a difference between the two, the reviewer and the submitter? Now, I thought you were saying the computer would kind of interpolate between the two. That's not.
No, two separate ways to index. One is two people, one indexer and one reviewer, or else a computer that does it all by itself.
Oh, okay.
And that happens, I think maybe it happens a lot with obituaries. Sometimes when I have been attaching records, attaching hints, it will say this form was indexed by a computer, and if you find mistakes, you can change them.
Okay.
So who would have ever thought that something like this could be done by computers? But there are some things that absolutely can't be done by computers. And among that is handwritten things.
Right.
They started out by doing the things, records that they thought were the most important. So vital records are some of the ones they started at the very first. Although, as you can see, they're still working on vital records. Land records are crucial, and probate records are crucial to genealogists, but they don't have as much basic information. So it's just now that they're starting land records, and they haven't done any probate records yet.
Okay.
So they're kind of going by what they think is important. Now, if we look at this, I just chose Polish out of an idea. Italian, let's see how many Italian ones there are. A bunch of Italian ones. Think of how important it is for the saints in Italy to be able to have indexed records. Think of how much we rely on them in the United States. Wouldn't it be great if more Italian records were indexed? And that's why they're working on them, is so that they can catch up and they can have the benefits that English speakers have with our records. Okay, other questions? Yes, Trevor.
How long does it, or what's the process of, or I suppose, when is somebody given the capability to review a record? Because I know that I do not have that.
I didn't look it up tonight to be sure. I think it's 1,000.
Oh.
Now, is it 1,000 names or 1,000 batches? I think it's 1,000 names. But they just want you to have good experience before you start. And I think when you get to that point, it will, something right over here on the activity level, it will either add it itself or else it will give you the option to add review. But I clicked on mine and mine does not give me only indexing. Mine says indexing/review. Other comments or questions? How many are going to index before next week? My husband just raised his hand. Yes, he will do quite a bit. Helen, you will do some. I hope that a bunch of us will find time to do a batch before next week.
I will do some.
Good. Now, was that Trevor or somebody else?
That was John.
Oh, John, good.
I
Good.
broke my camera somehow.
You better do Spanish speaking ones, John.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I found some from Scotland that I can also do.
Okay. Now I'm just happened to think my grandson who does well with handwriting, maybe he should try to do Portuguese. Right now there aren't any Portuguese ones available. But he maybe should watch that because he his father is half Brazilian and speaks, and so Portuguese was a language in his home as he was growing up. So that would be a good language for him to do, or a good place for him to do. And perhaps if there were Portuguese projects, he would want to choose Brazil. And if he was lucky enough that one was from Recife, then probably he would want to do ones from Recife, Brazil, so that he could be doing the ones that were most likely his family and his family's relatives. Okay, I hear my clock. my clock says it's time for the closing prayer. If nobody else has any questions, Jill, would you say the closing prayer? Or did I ask you last week?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't.
Okay, then would you please?
Sure. Our Father in heaven, we are very grateful for this time we've had together to learn more about indexing and to get excited about doing it. And we pray, Heavenly Father, that you'll please bless us in our efforts to do family history and to go to the temple when possible. And we're grateful for all our opportunities. And we thank you, Father, for our teacher. And this we say in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, so next week, it'll be about time to start over, kind of from the beginning. Unless, are you interested in doing more mapping and land and kind of those things, or would you like to go back to beginning how to do family history? Okay, I'm going to ask some questions. Do you want to do land?
Yeah, do land. Do you want to
Land.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we do.
Okay. Probate.
Oh, yeah, we want that too.
Maps. I want to teach a class on the family history portal, because the family history portal is the important reason for people to go into the Family History Center instead of just using their computers. But I'm not experienced enough on it yet to give a class on it. I went in yesterday to practice and came home saying, nope, I don't know enough yet. I need to have more experience in making it work. The wiki. How many want to learn a class, have a class on the wiki? I want Helen to teach us a class on the wiki.
That would be good.
The wiki is one of those things that we don't know how much we need it until we start using it.
Right. Good place to start many times. I'm just learning that.
I didn't hear you, John.
I said a wiki is a good place to start many times, and I'm just learning that now. But it can give you a lot of historical and anecdotal information that even where to start looking.
Yes, I think it replaces a lot of the big thick books that we used to use.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, maybe that's what we'll do for the next few months, is maybe we'll try to fill in enough classes, I think, between now and Christmas, that we start over in January with the new set of classes.
Nancy, I have a question.
Okay.
You mentioned probate, but we were looking up probate records, but we found that it was hard to find will records. And is that all separate, or we're a little confused about how to find wills that are recorded, but not necessarily. Just don't understand the link between a will and probate. Yes.
A will is one kind of a probate record. A will is what somebody writes about how they want their belongings, particularly their land, to be assigned to somebody else when they die. And usually they want it assigned to their family. But there are other kinds of probate records. If somebody dies leaving children, how are the children going to be financially prepared for? That would also be considered a probate record.
So
who's going to take care of the children? That's also going to be part of a probate record.
So we're going to cover wills under probate then?
Mostly wills, yes.
Okay, great.
But I don't, right now, I don't think I could teach an hour lesson on probates. I'd have to practice and prepare to be able to teach it for an hour.
Yeah.
But I think that would be a good one to teach.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I think that maps are more valuable than we often realize. So I think we ought to do maps.
I think that's a good one. Yeah.
And so So I think that kind of made my decision is let's do some that are a little bit more specialized for the rest of this year. Really, we only have October, November left. Do we want a class every night in December? I think maybe not. I think most people are pretty busy during Decembers. So
I'll give you some time to prepare,
and to be,
If you feel you got to put, a lot of time into something to prepare something for the first year, it might be best to have a little sabbatical to do that.
Well, however, I'll pretty much be teaching the beginning of that as classes I've taught before. So they don't take quite as much preparation as ones that I haven't taught.
Yeah.
If I've taught a class on probate, it was years ago, not lately.
Yeah.
So, and church records also are important in research, but in the United States, not so much. And all of my research has been in the United States. I've been very stubborn and have not researched outside of the United States. I kind of figure when my relatives didn't live here, I don't research them. Till I get them all found. And that hasn't happened yet. But I was very disappointed at my success in using some of the sites on the portal when I worked on that yesterday. So I think I'm going to need to practice more, and I'm going to have Diane teach me some more. Okay.